Hey, welcome back to the workshop. For today's project, I'm going to be putting a handle on a hand-forged, made in Finland, Puronvarsi Puukko knife blade. Let's get started. Alright, so what are we working with here? This is a high-carbon, hand-forged, made in Finland Puronvarsi knife that I bought from Thompson's Knife Supply. Thompson's Scandinavian knife supply up in Michigan. I also got these two brass bolsters to go with it, one little short one and one larger one. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use yet. I may just fit them both and see how it goes. My handle block is a Brown Mallee Burl wood that I picked up from a local wood supplier, and I think this is an Australian wood actually, but there's some really cool stuff going on in here. I think that's going to make a really good looking handle. This blade is about almost exactly 4 inches long, or 10 centimeters. Alright, I'm going to start with the small guard first, the small bolster, and we'll see how that goes. Well, as we can see to start with, it doesn't fit. It goes about halfway up the tang. And this is really quite thick here, kind of at the back of the blade. So I don't want to cut into any of the knife if I don't have to. One, that's probably hardened. It's probably pretty difficult to cut. Let's take some metal out of here and see how it goes. As we can see, with just a little bit of filing, this already goes quite a bit farther up the tang. But got another inch or so to go. Let's keep going. Okay, we're almost there, and I can see it's still needs a little metal removed from this, right kind of in this area. Alright, what do we got here? Well, the fit really just isn't all that good. One of the problems is that this part of the blade and this part of the blade don't really line up straight, which means getting a straight bolster to line up with it is going to be tough. Yep, I think there's no way around it. When this is seated perfectly flush at the edge side of the blade, there's this big gap back here at the spine. I'm going to have to grind into this at least that much and try and level this out. Alright, that's a little better. There's always going to be kind of some nasty gaps. The sides here, the fit on this is never really going to be good. Probably the hole in this bolster was too big down here in the taper of the blade to start with, so we're just going to have to try and in the end we'll backfill that with epoxy or something. It'll all work out. It'll make a good working knife, but it just won't be super pretty. Anyway, that's probably about as good as that's going to get for now. Let's move on to the handle. Alright, timeout. Just as I was about to do the final fitting on the small bolster, I decided that I wasn't willing to live with the crappy fit. It was never going to look good. There was too much gap around the edges. And so I moved up to the bigger bolster. And that one came out a lot better than this one was ever going to. And so from this point forward in the video, that's the piece you're going to see. I didn't film the fitting of that one. Process was the same as this one, but it came out much better fitting. With a minimal workshop and no drill press, it can be difficult to drill a straight hole in the handle block. I've drawn a line down the center of the block to help me stay centered left and right, and I'm using a small bubble level on the drill to keep my up and down pitch from varying too much. It's not a perfect solution, but it helps some. Man, this wood is crazy hard to drill. I don't think it's stabilized wood, but it gunks up my drill bit quick. This wood is almost like oily inside. So when it gets into the drill bit, it turns into like a plastic. It's pretty weird, but that's alright. We just hit it a little bit at a time, and it's going to be fine. So the tang of this knife is much longer than my handle block. Ideally, you'd peen the end of the tang into some kind of butt cap or something, but I'm not set up to do that kind of work in here, so I'm going to have to cut it off short and glue it in. In the end, the tang of this knife will be sunk into the handle about 3 inches deep. That's plenty of length to make this knife strong enough to do what I want to do. Sorry, bushcrafters, but this knife won't be strong enough to baton through a tree trunk. But it really isn't that kind of tool anyway. In the end, it'll be as strong as it needs to be to do the work that I intend it to do, and that's all that matters. Next, I'll be filing a series of small notches into the tang of the knife to make sure that my glue has a good place to take hold. I'm using JB Weld to glue up this handle. I like JB Weld for knife handles because it fills gaps well and it has a very long working time. Also, numerous tests you can see here on YouTube have shown that JB Weld is one of the strongest epoxies that you can buy at any common home improvement or hardware store. If I could use anything, I'd probably still go for a marine epoxy like West Systems G-Flex. But I don't have any right now, and I don't feel like waiting to order some in. So JB Weld is just as good, and I can get it at the shop right now today. The knife is clamped up, and the epoxy is allowed to cure overnight. The basic dimensions for the handle of this knife are based on the San Mai knife that I made a few years ago. I'm pretty happy with the way that one came out, but I think I can make a few improvements to the shape this time around. This time, I want to make a handle shaped more like those found on the Tradesman knife, made by Adventure Sworn Knives in upstate New York. I don't have an Adventure Sworn knife because they're basically impossible to get. But I really like their handle shapes. I think they've really nailed it with that Tradesman model. So that's what I'm trying to replicate here, more or less. One of the things I'd like to demonstrate with this video is that you don't need a big shop full of power tools to do this kind of work. I don't have access to a big shop full of machinery anymore, but there's a part of me that still just loves making things. So here I am. The only power tool I'm using in this entire project is a hand drill. All of the rest of this job will be done by hand with hand tools alone. And if I can do it, you can do it. It'll take a little extra time, but give it a try. I think you'll be surprised how easy it can be. So now that I've got the rough shape cut out, the next thing to do is start rounding off the corners and blending it all together. This will be done with a series of hand carving, files, rasps, and finally sandpaper. All in all, I think it took me about 8 hours to finish this handle from the first cut to the final sanding and finishing. Well, I guess that about does it. This handle has about 4 coats of tung oil finish on it and 2 coats of Johnson's paste wax. It's not a high gloss finish, but it gives a good grippy feel in the hand. So I hope you found that interesting, and I'll be right back here with another video just as soon as I can. See you then.